All right. So today we are doing part two of florals, and I want to show you how to use watercolor in florals in two different ways. Maybe three. Let's see. So the thing about florals and watercolor is like always, like we did in pencil sketching, what we study in florals allows us to make a few mistakes and yet enjoy making flowers, but it also starts building in some kind of skill when we want to do more complex things. So the same thing goes with even watercolor or florals. We will be doing exactly the same thing that we do for everything else. We will be making washes, we'll be doing some detailing here and there. But if the painting turns out to be a little patchy, if the colors are not accurate, it's still okay on flowers, and it allows you to start seeing your art without too much judgment. You will be able to see how those patches still work and make your flowers look reasonably good, I would say. And this is the problem often that comes up with beginners. You will judge your own art so harshly that it stops you from exploring more. So hopefully at the end of this class, you won't be judging your art harshly. All right, so I've shared three images today. The first image is a flower which has where we will practice color blending. And the second and third image are both hydrangeas, where I'm going to show you how to create this kind of effect of multiple colors in an inflorescence with multiple flowers also, and using washes as well as some detailed illustration techniques. All right, so for drawing this flower, you will notice that this flower seems to have like an odd number of petals. How many? It's got some 10 petals, I think. There's no structure really. It doesn't really matter what the structure is, but you will be able to see the directions in which the petals are going. So like we've done this in the past several times. It's the same technique we'll use. Draw a circle that covers most of the flower. Some tips will stick outwards, some you can might be slightly short of the circle, doesn't matter. The center of the flower is pretty much in the center of the circle that we've drawn, and this can be manipulated. You can make the outer circle in such a way that in a flower like this, it can be exactly in the center. Oh, I'm gonna sneeze, excuse me. Oh, oh gosh, sorry. Didn't come. It'll sneak up on me sometime. All right. Then we have the dimensions. We will see how tall the flower petals will are if we consider the center of the flower as a unit measure. So we have one and possibly 1.5. Oops. Yeah, so this part of the circle is 1.5 times the diameter of the circle. This is the proportion of the inner circle. That's the proportion we have. And now for the directions, we can continue to make vertical and horizontal lines. So we know how or where to plant the tips of the petals. So this one is a little off 12 o'clock, but it has a petal exactly on the opposite side at the bottom. Then we have this, which is a little below 10 o'clock, and there's one at maybe below 3 o'clock. These seem to be at opposite ends. So there are several corollaries on either side. Noting them just will help us to make the flowers easier. Yeah, so more or less on opposite sides of the circle, we have these petals. All right, now when we are drawing this, I want you to draw this a little casually. Don't spend too much time in trying to make a very perfect petal shape or a perfect flower yet. We will do that for the hydrangea, so you don't have to worry about it right now. Okay, I'm going to share the image with you. Let's make that flower on the top left. Oh, sorry, my screen is the other way around. Right, so let's make this flower somewhere over here, about 2 or 3 inches big only, not too big. When you're making a circle, please make a circle like this. See, the base of your fingers, the little finger, should touch the paper, and your pencil is held a little far away so that when your hand is moving and you just make contact with the paper, you can make this circle. In yesterday's class, in the in-person class, I noticed that even making the circle is such a tragic event in most people's class, because they do it with such tedious pain, and then you have to erase the whole thing. It shouldn't be that way. Now we can wing the center a little bit. So just make sure that it is proportioned in such a way that the outer part of the circle will be 1.5 times or thereabouts. See, all these things need to be flexible. We can't have a hard and fast line in this case, because these structural lines are invariably going to be inaccurate. Okay, now we'll mark these points as seen in the reference image. So there's 3 petals on these opposite ends and 2 petals on these opposite ends. And northwest and southeast have got 2 petal tips, and the northeast and southwest have got 3 petal tips. Draw the ones that you can see from on top. There will be some which are overlapping the other petals. That's just these two. And then we can draw each side of each petal separately. So you are in no danger of making an odd shaped petal. Just notice one side of the petal shape and draw the other side. Draw the overlapping petals first and the underlapped petals later. That way you don't have to worry about this. If you are wondering about how to draw these lines, look at the direction in which the lines go in at the point where the petal starts from the center. Even they will be heading in some direction or the other, which can be marked against the central circle as if going in towards 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock, some kind of clockwise direction. Now once you're done with this, make a casual center for the circle sorry, make casual marks like little circles for pollen in the center of the flower. And once you're done, you can remove these construction lines, especially the lines that go through petals. So these lines here, they can be removed. And if you've drawn this really dark, then you can just roll the eraser once on top of the whole flower so that the uh, graphite can be picked up. Your hand should be so light that if you just roll the eraser on top, that graphite should be picked up. That's how light we want our illustrations to be. Now next to the flower, let's make two rectangular shapes. These are about an inch long and half a centimeter wide. And in this we will practice our colors. So the colors we will use in this flower are going to be gamboge. I'm making a circle and putting the name first and then we'll put the color in later. Orange, and a combination of crimson plus ultramarine and maybe a little bit of burnt umber. For today, when we are painting, I'm going to ask you to take two containers because there's a lot of color blending in all we're going to do. Keep one container clear if you can, because that will show you how muddy the water is getting, and one container can be just dark where you will wash the brushes. So the clear container water should be as clear as possible at all times. Now let's get together some colors on the palette. Let's put gamboge, wash this away. Now let's put orange, and a little bit of crimson, ultramarine blue, and burnt umber. So whenever you're mixing colors, remember, don't make one big puddle. Make a small puddle along the edge, so all your colors should be seen before you decide on which color is the best. Otherwise, you just keep making a bigger and bigger puddle of the wrong color. Now that I have made so much of the first mixture, that's crimson, ultramarine, and burnt umber, I want to add more of any other color. I start adding it from the side, not right in the center. And then I draw in the rest of the colors. And even in this color, I think we could use a little bit of orange. Colors in a watercolor palette are not only meant to present themselves in their hues, that is the shade that they are in, but they also lend a certain tone to other colors. It's becoming a little dull for some reason. Maybe my orange is not purely orange. It should become more vibrant. Yeah, so I'm going to use a combination of these two colors. So this color is crimson, ultramarine, burnt umber, and orange separately. Now there's two ways in which we can paint these petals. The first one is to wet the entire section with clean water, or you can also use yellow. Maybe we can do that because the base color is gamboge on the petal. So take some gamboge and a lot of water and give this a nice wash. The entire thing. I want you to just see this first before you start painting. So there is extra color on the top here. Is everyone seeing? Just wait, don't do anything. Just observe this because I won't be able to redo this again. And then you can drop color in this direction, going backwards towards where you want the color to be more concentrated. Then wipe your brush and drop in the last color in the same way. So this is a play of water, and this is all just a wet on wet color drop. Okay, so this is the first thing. You can try this and then I'll show you the second technique. All right, so for this second technique, we want the paint to be reasonably runny but also have enough pigment in it, so it's not too light. And just observe this technique. It's really important you see each aspect of it. So when you are putting the color down, make sure that you have enough medium throughout. After about 3 or 4 strokes, add more because you want the right side edge to be hydrated. Can you see this? There's enough liquid on the right, and I go a little beyond the point that I want the yellow to stay. Then, without washing the brush, because these colors are contiguous, I'm going to take the orange. So there's a little bit of gamboge in that as well. And I will now color this further. So I'm merging and painting. And then I do the same thing. Don't wash the brush, but make sure that you have enough pigment and you can put in the third color. So here you have a lot of control. And keep loading up the color as you go. So you don't want to come back and you don't want to go sideways. You have to go further and further and perpendicular to the edge. Okay, give it a shot. I'll be right back. How was it? Was the second one slightly better? Cool. Okay, so that's the technique we are going to use for all the petals. And when you're painting this, also notice how there are certain lines in the petal itself. So a few textured strokes will not be bad. So this time we can use a slightly fatter brush. And you could, of course, paint the center in this color simply because it's a light color, and if you go over and over it again, it's not going to be bad. So remember the consistency of the paint. So the first color is gamboge. The second color is orange, but you see very little of the orange. It quickly converts into this um, crimson color. So I am very gently touching just the tip of my loaded brush. And as I come to the back, I can add a slightly deeper shade, or I can just quickly finish this off. And don't be tempted to use this brush and come right back in the center. Don't do that. You can reduce some color and make one stroke from the sides. If you can just touch one hair of the brush, this will be enough. And after you finish painting one petal, move to a petal at least another one petal away from this one. So standard rules of watercolor painting apply. Do not paint next to each other unless you want the colors to blend. And don't worry about anything that's happening in your petal. We are going to make a second layer of some details where most of the inconsistencies might get covered. Now this is how you can do multiple petals also. Let's say if we want to do these two petals in one go. You can finish off one petal while the other one's yellow is still wet. It's all a matter of managing the consistency of the paint. See, these two petals have been painted together. So today, excuse me, our task is not to make this flower look like a botanical illustration fit for like a Kew Gardens entry. But we're just learning step one of how to make this flower fun using these colors. So some part of the flower is going to be subjected to the behavior of watercolor, which is very erratic. Anything is going to happen anywhere, and let it happen. Oh, I might as well show you this one thing that you can do. You can wipe your brush down, and while the paint is still wet, not wet, let's say damp, you can pick up some paint like this. Just see this. If I want to make some light lines going inward into the dark, I wipe my brush on the rag, and just with the tip of the brush, I can pick up some paint. So you get these very subtle lines going into the dark section of the petal. See? Looks really, really lovely. If you do it when the petal is too wet, then you may get a different result. When you do it when it's dry, you will get a different result. So best done when it is damp. And today it's best done at different times so that you know what that damp level is. Once this is done, you can use a very fine brush and oops, this is the wrong fine brush. A zero or yeah, a zero or a one maybe, or even a double zero is fine. And with the tiniest of strokes, if you are comfortable making it, you can make a line along the edge of some of the petals. Don't make it throughout because it'll look very boring, very predictable. wherever you feel the need. Now the center is looking quite boring, so you can take a little bit of this burnt umber mixed with black or blue, some kind of deep color. But don't make it too wet. And with again a very delicate hand and very little paint, mark a periphery around the circles that we have marked in the for the center, just like a silhouette, a cloud like shape. Some of the circles can also get a crescent shape along their edge on any one side, or maybe one or two sides. So bottom and right, or bottom and left, or top and right, or top and left, something like that. A few lines in the center. If we make circles throughout the center, again that looks very boring, very predictable, and very graphic like. Now, beyond this point, if there is anything more you feel you want to do, it needs to be very light and very subtle. So, test out a line maybe on paper. See how light you can make the line. This is made from this color. And using that line with a very thin brush, you can make a few details on the petal. So it's a near dry brush. Now I prefer to do it inside to outside, but you can also do it from outside to inside, where you can then leave the brush gently so that you have a very light line like this. Now, in the event that your painting has become too light and you feel you want to make a second layer, feel free to make that layer after the first layer has completely dried and before you make this detail. If you've made the detail, let that layer be. Don't make any more layers. And the last bit we will do will be to throw in a little bit of shadow. So for the shadow, let's take cobalt blue. Although you can also take ultramarine blue, it doesn't matter what blue you're taking really. And I'm taking just this much pigment. It's very little. It's not too dark. With that pigment, I'm going to do a little bit of brush manipulation so that I'm making one stroke under every petal that has overlapped another petal, and there's quite a few of them here. So I'll make a stroke like this. It comes very thin from the, I think thin from the center, and then it becomes fat towards the outside. See this? It's a very subtle stroke. I'll show it again. Thin from the center, sorry, thick from the center, and becomes fat towards the outside. Fat here, thin here, fat in the center, thin towards the outside. We don't want it to be too dark. It has to remain subtle. So it's there, but it's still not there. Its only contribution is to create an overall effect of depth. And it may not be everywhere. So use your discretion. You can put a little bit on some petals, tips or edges like this, maybe somewhere like this. And that's it. That's how you can make flowers like these. All right, do you need a few minutes? Okay, I'm just gonna, while you're finished painting, I'm just gonna put some stalk and leaves to this. Done, everyone? If you're painting beyond this point, they're probably overdoing, huh? So be careful. You don't want to make it too muddy. All right, now let's move to the hydrangeas. Let's first move to the pink hydrangea. That's this flower. This will help us understand the structure of the individual flower so that when we have to paint the inflorescence, we are not totally at a loss. Hydrangeas typically have four petals. This one looks like it's got five petals. It's really weird. But the structure is fairly simple. It creates a nice circle in itself. Here you will notice it is a very filled up uh, petal. The petal shape is very wide in the center and it's almost circular or oval with a little tip on the extreme end. So we are going to make this whole structure as if these were not flowers. There isn't any one shape that we can go with, and trying to build this with shapes might be just too technical. You don't really need it. So keep your lines flowing and try to make these shapes without thinking of this as flowers. And we don't have to make them too big either. So let me show you how I would do it. You can, of course, start off with a circle. Maybe I'll make it here at the bottom. Start off with a circle so you know how big you want to make the flower. Then make a central circle, make some kind of shape like this and like this. So these are all basic shapes that I can see in the shape of the petal. Once I'm comfortable with the proportions, then I can make a fair line. And look at each petal, each of them is different, each of them has a different kind of edge. So even if we are making a very casual illustration, it can't be too inaccurate. At least the attempt should not be wanting. Once your the flower in the foreground is done, that will give you cues. So you know that the flower on the right hand side, or let's say not even flower, you have a shape on the right hand side of the upright petal. And then beyond that, there is a shape that is somewhat like this. Below is like an oval shape, and you have another shape sticking outward. So, the less you think about these things, the better you will illustrate. If we start thinking too much, then we will start dictating how the object should be based on what our brain tells us. And it's not very comforting to know that in these cases, the brain can often tell you something wrong. There is a little, sorry, a leaf on the side which has a very serrated edge. So first make a leaf shape and then put nice V-shaped serrations. Not too perfect. As you can see, the leaf itself is not too perfect. Make some veins like these, like Y shapes. And that's it. That is our illustration. So for painting this, we are going to use some of the same colors, but much more muted and maybe a different tonality to it. So I'm keeping my gamboge really light and I am applying the gamboge, maybe a smattering of orange as well, and a very, very light rosy crimson. And this is going to be applied very organically. So I would like you all to just observe this. Just make contact with the paper using your brush and just taint the flower shapes with your colors. Let the color go out if it goes outside of the flower also, it doesn't matter. But don't paint back and forth and cover the whole thing. That will be ruinous. And then freely let the crimson fall in place like this. It's very watery, so I know that my crimson is not going to be too dark, but that watery consistency is going to let the color really flow through this flower, and this will give the flower so much more personality. And in some cases, maybe the flower won't have or might have extra color, or it might become too dark or something like that. It is bound to happen. Let it happen. It's it won't harm the picture that much, I can tell you. So these things, these accidents are really fun in a picture. And the most important thing is just stop painting at one point. Just stop. Whatever is happening, let it happen. We are going to come back and paint some more stuff, but don't do any musty beyond a point. Now, what that point is, I'll leave it to you. But had you been around here, I would have told you what that point would have been. Now, again, over here, you can use your brush to create some textures if you want, like a light line here, pick up some paint over here maybe, if there is a possibility. But if not, then just let it be. We'll come back to it. Now, in order for us to not be tempted to paint over here too soon, you can start illustrating the blue hydrangeas. So this is a much bigger inflorescence, and it will help if we make the shape of the entire inflorescence like this, in which you can divide the space into basic shapes like these. And this is almost like a squarish oval shape you will make that represents each flower or a part of the flower that you see. Like this kind of flattish oval is representing only two petals. And typically in an inflorescence, you will have some flowers that are facing towards us and some flowers that are crushed. Some petals will be crushed on one side. So if you can't see a whole flower, draw whatever part of the flower you can see and ignore the rest. As you keep filling in the details, those um, those parts that you have ignored start becoming insignificant because there's so much other information to inform you of the truth of your picture. The foreshortened flowers look even funnier. The petal that is towards us is often just seen as a disc. The ones on the side are too flat. And as you go around, you will, in some places, only see some petals, not even a full flower. So just draw the shape. If you have drawn it in the right place, it will it will make sense in the picture. Excuse me. Okay, here we follow the same thing, making different washes. Sorry, a wash with different colors. We can use cerulean blue here and ultramarine. So since this is a wash, and you can see that the center of some flowers are really light blue, you can put a light cerulean wash right in some petals first. And make this fairly wet. And then just on the periphery, you can add ultramarine. You could also add a little bit of crimson to this mix to make the ultramarine brighter. See the amount of water that I have in my brush. This will ensure that the paint or the pigment is light. And I'm doing the same thing. I'm just uh, guiding the color with my brush in different sections. So in the time that it takes us to make this painting, the cerulean needs to remain wet and available to blend, even though it has been placed before the other colors. And here now you can add little deeper color in some sections while they are still wet. Excuse me. So what we tried doing in this first blend, right? As your colors are drying, you can just drop in a little bit of that cerulean and crimson mix and let the colors do whatever they're doing. You can drop these along the edges or just below certain petals so that they sit in significant areas. They're not just randomly placed. Traditionally, when painting flowers, often the first step is to put a wash of yellow underneath. You can put a yellow ochre or like a mix of gamboge and yellow ochre. So because these colors are very crisp, I didn't want to put that, but we are going to do that for the leaves. So make a mix of gamboge and yellow ochre. Not too deep, this is just to tint the paper. And another with sap green and yellow ochre. Excuse me. It might also help to use raw umber instead of yellow ochre. This is a nice shade which gives green a very mature look as well. So we can paint the center portion of the leaf in the gamboge and yellow ochre shade, and then from the sides you drop in the green. So at any point that you are mixing a color, go go into the previous color on a perpendicular angle, and then towards the end a more concentrated green one might also help, which has just in the same shade you have a little more sap green, and gently pull it outward towards the edge. Now while the green is drying, we can start putting some details on the red flowers. And you can do this by putting some shadows first. So the same brown, blue shades will do. And you can add that behind these flowers or the petals so that you create that depth. This paint is fairly dry. It flows, but it is fairly dry. So I have absorbed the leaf into that shade. And while the leaf is wet, I can still put in some color in some sections on the leaf also so that it looks more cohesive. Then using the same color, same brush, we can create the same kinds of shadows that we did in the previous flower on the petals as well. Then between the petals, you can make a darker shade and also shadows. So you need nice control on your brush. Don't do this part in a rush. When you are making this shadow using brush manipulation, press your brush down. Press it down so that you get a good distribution of paint. If you don't press it down, I'm afraid all you'll get is one fat line that'll look like you're trying to outline the petal. We don't want to outline the petal. Now, to make the details on the hydrangea, at this point we can start making some textural lines. We will be painting the segments in between these lines. So these are what could be the veins in the petal, and at some points we are going to put in color in between these lines to make them emerge in the negative. So we'll go back to this same color that we had made. Keep it very light. Don't make it too concentrated. Test it out before you start painting. And basically, in just a few places, you will make these patches of color so that it looks like the hydrangeas petals have colors in their tips. The lighter you keep these lines, the less patchy they will look. We are creating some patches because that is how the flower looks anyway, right? But keep your paint light. And in some places you can overlay it with more concentrated dots. Your dots should not look like dots though. They need to look, the dots need to contribute to the shape and texture that we're trying to make. If you just make dots, then I'm afraid that it's going to look like a impressionist painting, but not necessarily the flower you're making. So this detailing can take a long time. But if you can make this, it is just absolutely divine. So even here, it helps to press the brush down in some places. It's not just the tip of the brush that has to do all the work. The middle of the brush can also help. But all said and done, it's the shadows that really work. So if you can't make any of the details, even if you stop at the shadows, even that will look nice. Now, similarly, in the blue hydrangeas, we have a lot of sections that are dark. So you can take ultramarine blue now and drop it into some sections to create the shadows. This part we have to do very carefully. But essentially it's the same. And to make this flower look more vibrant, you can use the ultramarine in certain sections to create the dark spaces between petals, which can also be painted in black, by the way. So as you proceed, your flower will start becoming more and more detailed, and also you can see that behind all of that detail, you still have the same lovely base color and all the fun that is happening over here between the colors. So there are some petals that can be slightly deeper in some sections. How's everyone doing? For the leaves, you can do the same thing. You can take a deeper shade and put shadows like that. And also in some sections, there's already very nice edges here, so I don't really have to even touch it. But if you feel, you can make some sections deeper like that. This is a very nice exercise in negative area painting, which we have done in the past. It's quite rewarding. It helps you to see spaces better. Also, brush control improves. Now, beyond all of this, there's one thing that I feel you should know, and that is a slow build-up of color. After all this is done, also, you can create some uh, depth or textures in flowers by creating detailed lines. And these lines are made with a very dry paint, which you can make by just dabbing a loaded brush onto your um, rag. So say I want to add some color to this petal. I make my color and I slowly work a shade on top of it like this, which is very time consuming but can give us extreme accuracy. So this is a very slow process of building in depth of color. The brush is fairly dry. The color is not as um, The shade is not as deep, so I can make my flower very accurate. So the colors remain the same, the application is very different. A slightly drier brush will help, just slightly. So this helps in building subtle shadows or subtle color changes. And you can continue to layer one upon the other. So this takes some time just to figure out whether you're getting the right consistency or not. But till then, even this much, a nice structure of flowers, a good wash where the colors are very vibrant, a good match of colors and a nice composition is brilliant. It's good enough to make your pictures really shine. To this, you can also add some pencil, color pencil work, or you can add regular, um, just a regular pencil can be used to create shadows as well, textures also. So, something like this. Just use the gray of the pencil in a few places to add the details. You have better control with this. So the pencil shading can be used underneath flowers like that. You can do this even before painting the leaves. We normally worry about pencil marks being uh, smudged up afterwards, right? But in in the case of watercolor, on top of pencil marks, I think there's something in watercolor that just makes it permanent, makes the pencil or the graphite permanent. So now I'm going to paint over these pencil marks. Same colors as before. That's it. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed making the flowers. I know it can be a little difficult. Sometimes the control on the watercolor is a little shaky. It'll take a little while. But the thing with watercolors is that you have to allow yourself to become familiar with how it plays. There are lots of nuances. There are different factors that you have to consider. But the most important things to note are consistency of paint, how much water you have, and how much pigment, what brush size you use. The brush size is dependent on the area you want to paint, and also the speed at which you're painting. So if you paint it too fast, then you're probably bruising the paper by putting in too much water, too much medium, while everything is still wet. If you're painting too slow and you're making a continuous wash, there's a likelihood that parts of your wash are going to become rather patchy. So this is something that you just have to figure out. And the more you paint, the more you observe and engage with the watercolor and your brushes and the water, it will help you to master some of these techniques. And trust me, it happens very organically. Before you know it, you will be doing a great job. So thank you again for watching to the end. Please hit subscribe, hit like, and also share your comments, share your pictures with me. I'd love to see how you're getting along. Until next time, have a nice time painting.